Welcome to Journaling with Nature, the podcast for those who want to turn curiosity into wonder, a pencil sketch into a rabbit hole of discovery, a moment of stillness into a life full of joy. I'm your host, Bethan Burton. Let's open the pages of our nature journals and explore this world together. Hello, this is episode 182. I hope you're doing well. In this part of the world, we recently experienced Cyclone Alfred, and I talked about that a little bit last time when we had a prompt episode of this podcast. And I was pretty chuffed with myself that week because I had been very organized. I knew there was a possibility of a blackout, and so I got the podcast scheduled ahead of time that week. And the day after the podcast came out, and actually on the podcast, I was talking about how we were okay. We just had a bit of rain and wind, no big deal. And then after I thought it was all over, the power and the internet and the phone went out. And I was smiling to myself because I'd managed to schedule the podcast and I knew it was going to upload no matter what was happening with the power. But then we had a few days without power, without internet, without phone, and it really showed up how much we rely on all these things. And that was really obvious when they were gone. It was a strange feeling, and we had to do a bit of strategic planning for how we were going to keep functioning. But we got there, and we spent during that period quite a lot of time reading by torchlight. And I'm reading at the moment a book called Orbital by Samantha Harvey, and it was recommended by my dear friend Kate before she passed away. And you can go back and listen to episode 175 of this podcast, where you'll hear Kate speaking about the book. And it's a novel about folks living on an international space station. And they're looking back at the Earth from the space station. And the novel explores all the feelings and thoughts that go with this experience. It's incredibly powerful to think about our beautiful, beautiful planet, so utterly unique in our solar system, and much, much further than that. There's no other planets like it that we've discovered. It's this blue ball that just has the right conditions to support life, to grow this incredible diversity of habitats and life forms that we see all around us and that we're part of. And it got me thinking about this unique perspective that astronauts have, that they get to see our planet from a distance. And I was thinking about how that must change you and bring the preciousness of life into focus. Because the reality is that we're on this incredible planet, but it's so easy to forget. We get caught up with day-to-day life and the challenges and the details and complexities of human relationships and navigating our lives. But it's always here, this beautiful place that is so unique and so unlikely to exist, and allowing ourselves to remember how unique and how precious this is helpful in lots of ways. Helpful for remembering not to worry about the small stuff and to remember to take care of each other and of this place, this incredible planet where we live. And I was thinking about ways that we could remind ourselves through nature journaling that we actually exist on this planet. And it's weird to say that, but it's so easy to forget. My son asked me the other day, what's your favorite planet? And I know what he was thinking. He was thinking of planets out there. And he was thinking that I'd say Saturn because of its rings, or Jupiter because of its moons. I know he was thinking of planets out there in the rest of the solar system, but I said to him, my favorite planet is Earth. Because really, what's more wondrous than here? What's more incredible or fascinating than this place that holds life? And not just life, but an unfathomable diversity of life. So for today's prompt, I'd love to explore ways that we can connect with this feeling without going into space ourselves, obviously, and remind ourselves that we're actually floating through space right now on this incredible blue planet. We could start by connecting with the night sky. That's the first step. So head outside and just look up. And the moon's likely to be the first thing that catches your eye. It's the biggest thing in the night sky. And here where I live, I often notice Venus on the western horizon as the brightest thing in the sky in the early evening. If you live in the city or even in the suburbs, you might have a lot of light pollution that affects the number of stars that you see at night. But if you have the chance to visit a place with low light pollution, it is really something incredible that you never forget. I remember when we were kids, we used to visit my grandmother at her home, which was in a kind of rural place in New South Wales. And that was the first time I saw the Milky Way in the night sky. And we'd lie out on the grass and just kind of get lost in the wonder and the enormity of realizing where we were. If you're in an urban or suburban place with high levels of light pollution, you can use photographs of the night sky and photographs of Earth seen from space as a way to connect with and kind of understand about what we're experiencing here. I think that humans have an amazing capacity to kind of block out information that's too overwhelming. And sometimes people don't like to ponder space too much because it can bring on a kind of sense of panic. Have you ever felt that? I've really felt that before. Sometimes I have to close that off just so that it doesn't overwhelm me. Because you realize that we're just tiny, unfathomably, infinitesimally tiny in the vastness of this universe, which is expanding all the time. But it can also bring things into perspective. Like if you said something gauche at a party and you're worrying about it for hours, it actually doesn't matter at all when you know that you're tinier than tiny and that your moment on this planet is less than a blink of an eye and it won't even register in the vastness of time. That sort of thing helps me a lot. So if you're up for it, look at photographs and they can help us to tap into that understanding of the enormity of this universe and that we are just a tiny part of it. Actually, back in episode 175, when I was talking with Kate about the book Orbital, I told a story about how I remember in Year 8 science class we did a unit on space and we looked at a lot of photographs of Earth from space, and that just really stuck in my mind because it was the first time I really connected with that reality, that enormity and beauty of our Earth in space. So photographs can be powerful in that way. You can use photographs and videos from space to nature journal from, and a while back Roseanne Hansen actually led a virtual field trip to Mars where she led participants through nature journaling on the Red Planet. I'll put a link in the show notes to Roseanne's field trip, which you can still access and participate in yourself. That's quite a fun thing. So what else can we do to connect with our planet as it exists within the context of space? Maybe in your city you have a planetarium. Here in Brisbane they have a planetarium that has displays about space, about Earth and our solar system, and they have shows that you can participate in where they have a sky dome where you sit and they project images of the night sky onto the ceiling and point out things that you can see here in the Southern Hemisphere. This is a really cool experience. There are also groups of people who gather in different cities, astronomical societies, that come out with telescopes and set them up and make them available to the public. And at these events, these people, these enthusiasts, let you look at interesting features in the night sky through their telescope and also share their knowledge with you, and you can ask questions and get to know what you're looking at. In your nature journal, what would you choose to record if you were exploring this idea of Earth as part of a solar system and a galaxy and a universe? Sketches of Earth from the night sky are great, but also just writing in words about your experience of the night sky, of trying to fathom the unfathomable idea that we are this tiny speck in an ever-expanding universe. What does that make you feel? How can you express that in your nature journal? I would love to hear from you about how you connect with and nature journal about our Earth and our position in the vastness of space. Have you done this before? How did you go about it? What do you feel when you contemplate our place in the universe? Does it feel good or scary, or does it feel both of these things at the same time? What advice do you have for others who might want to start to explore this idea? You can leave a comment below this episode on the Journaling with Nature website. I would really love to hear your perspective. Thanks so much for listening. See you next week.